What's going on, fellas? It's Cager, and I'm back to talk about the recent trailer for Blood of the Dead. If you want to see more zombies content, let me know by leaving a like on this video, or just tell me in the comments. Also, if there's a specific topic you'd like me to cover in a future video, whether it's related to zombies or not, let me know over on my Discord server. You can find a link to the chat in the description. Anyways, onto the video. So this trailer definitely gives us more questions than answers. It is definitely related to the series of comics from last year, but it seems like Black Ops 4 is twisting the story in a bit of a different direction. Before I dissect the trailer, I want to point out a few general things about the lore of zombies that will help us figure this whole thing out. Throughout the events of Black Ops 3, Primus is in a cycle. History repeats itself until the cycle is broken at the end of Revelations. Up until Revelations, the cycle will repeat itself after Primus fails. There are many canon endings for Primus, some of which we got to see in the promotional trailers for maps, such as Richtofens getting devoured in the Zetsubo no Shima trailer. Each of the characters has died, and is only the versions that complete the Revelations Easter egg that break the cycle and live on in the end. With this in mind, it is possible for slight alterations to occur within each cycle. This is important to understand the trailer for Blood of the Dead. In the 6th issue of the Zombies comic, Primus teleports from Zetsubo no Shima to the lab to meet with an alternate version of Richtofen. I'll be calling this Richtofen Journey Richtofen to avoid confusion. Journey Richtofen exclaims that Primus has arrived just on time and gives the blood vials to Primus Richtofen with excitement. Everything in the cycle has gone smoothly up until this point. However, I don't believe this is the version of Primus we see in Kronorium Revelations. These characters likely perished, either in Gorod or Revelations, but definitely before defeating the Shadow Man. Thus, the cycle repeated itself once again, and this time around, Primus is late to the lab. We don't know why, but in the trailer they didn't teleport directly to the lab. They had to walk through the prison to find it. Since they got to the lab later in this cycle, Journey Richtofen is agitated. He's in a much different mood than in the comics, and hands Primus Richtofen the blood vials and Kronorium and then just takes off. So far, this seems completely normal. It makes sense that Journey Richtofen would be frustrated by Primus arriving late, but nothing else seems off. That is until Primus Richtofen realizes the Kronorium has changed. The Kronorium contains all the possible outcomes of the universe, depending on who's reading it and what circumstances they're in. Given the fact that Primus arrived to the lab late, it makes sense that the Kronorium changed slightly. However, the next line is what really threw me off.
What is the meaning of this? The pages have changed. They... Our blood! Mine blood! You cannot possibly expect me to let this happen! You son of a bitch!
My initial interpretation of this was that Journey Richtofen had manipulated the Primus cast. He had brought them to the laboratory to get their blood, to give to alternate versions of the characters that are a part of Journey Richtofen's crew, and then they would be the ones to break the cycle, leaving Primus trapped in Mob of the Dead. However, I don't think that's what's happening here. If that were the case, everything wouldn't have gone so smoothly in the comics. The only thing that changed between these versions was that Primus arrived later this time around, so there's no reason to believe that Journey Richtofen has been plotting against them. His actions in the trailer don't suggest that he opposes Primus, rather he's simply angry at them for not arriving on time as planned. Also, Journey Richtofen never collected blood from Primus, so that couldn't possibly be what this means. This still leaves many questions though. What does Primus Richtofen mean when he says, "our blood, my blood"? I think what could be happening here is that some of the blood vials contain blood from Ultimus. I would assume that this is unrelated to the Primus crew arriving late, but perhaps this is the first time that Primus Richtofen is hearing of it. Each character has 2 blood vials, and we all assume that both of them were from Victus, but what if one is a vial from a Victus member, and the other one is from an Ultimus member? Perhaps Journey Richtofen got the blood vials from Ultimus when he visited the house. Earlier on in the 6th issue of the comic, we could clearly see that Journey Richtofen and Victus are at the house, not the lab. We could tell that by the room layout. It's the same thing as the trailer for Revelations. Journey Richtofen even says to be quiet since the children are asleep upstairs. Does this mean that Journey Richtofen collected blood samples from the children as well as Victus? The only problem here is that Nikolai is still not at the house at this point in time, since Primus hasn't gone to Gorod Krovi yet, though theoretically Journey Richtofen could have visited the house in the future. Though if getting the blood samples from Ultimus was always a part of Journey Richtofen's plans, why didn't the Kronorium change in the comics? The answer here is simple. Primus Richtofen never opened up the Kronorium in the comics. He didn't need to, since Primus arrived on time they could leave the lab as planned, so Richtofen would have no need to look through the Kronorium for changes. However, in the trailer, we saw that since Primus arrived late, Brutus destroyed their portal back, and they had to find another way to escape the prison. Journey Richtofen likely saw all of this unfold when he was reading the Kronorium as the Primus crew entered the lab, which is why he instructed Primus Richtofen to read the Kronorium again. And there you have it. The rest of the trailer shows the Primus crew attempting to escape the prison, which is likely where the map will start off at. I did a lot of theorizing here, but after looking back at the comics, the Kronorium, and the past maps, I think I pieced this whole thing together. Blood of the Dead indeed takes place in between Zetsubo and Gorod, and the comics were just a different version of that story playing out. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Was Journey Richtofen just frustrated, or has he been plotting something against the Primus crew this whole time? I'd love to hear your interpretation of the trailer thus far. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all news related to Black Ops 4 Zombies and more. I hope you're having a wonderful day. This is Cager, and I'll see you in the next one.